Today we're going to talk about the 5 most powerful vitamins that dissolve plaque in your arteries and help you live longer. Now let's face it, none of us really want to think about having hardened arteries and plaque buildup and all this kind of stuff. But it is something we need to be aware of because it can lead to heart attacks and strokes and other problems like that. So let's dive into this topic and let's talk about the 5 vitamins. All right, let's start off with vitamin A. Okay, now there's different types of vitamin A. You have the preformed vitamin A, which comes from animal products, and then you have the pro-vitamin A carotenoids, which come from plants. And the one that we're going to be talking about is beta-carotene. Now, what does beta-carotene do? Well, it acts as an antioxidant, and it helps prevent oxidation, which is basically the beginning of atherosclerosis. All right, so what foods are high in beta-carotene? Well, you have carrots, sweet potato, pumpkin, spinach, kale, apricots, and cantaloupe. I mean, just look at these beautiful orange carrots. They're so good for you. Now, if you wanted to get more vitamin A into your diet, you can also take a supplement. And when you do that, make sure it's not more than 3,000 IUs per day, because you do not want to go too high with vitamin A. If you go too high with vitamin A, you can end up with all sorts of problems. So keep it under 3,000 IUs. And I'm talking about real vitamin A, not the synthetic version, which is called palmitate. Make sure you get the real vitamin A, which is retinol. All right, number 2, we have vitamin C. Now, what's interesting about vitamin C is that people that have a deficiency in vitamin C, their blood vessels are very weak, and they bruise easily. It's called scurvy. That's what happens when you're deficient in vitamin C. But those who consume enough vitamin C, their blood vessels are stronger, their capillaries are stronger, and they don't have the weakness that would allow plaque to build up. Now, foods that are high in vitamin C include sauerkraut, bell peppers, berries, citrus fruits, melons, tomatoes, broccoli, and even herbs like rose hips. These are all loaded with vitamin C. One thing I want to recommend, though, if you're going to get your vitamin C from foods, make sure you get it from a food source that also has a good amount of bioflavonoids. And that would be like the rose hips or the berries. If you just get it from like oranges, it's really not that great unless you use acerola cherry, which has a lot of bioflavonoids. But my recommendation is to take a vitamin C supplement, but not the synthetic type. You want the true vitamin C, which is called ascorbic acid. And you want to get the one that's a whole fruit powder. I recommend a brand that makes the best vitamin C on the market. But you can also get this in a food-based vitamin C, which is like a complex of various different things, including some of the other things that I'm recommending in this video, and it's food-based, so it's much better. It's more expensive, but if you can afford it, I would go with that one. All right, number 3, we have vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is an interesting vitamin because you can get it from the sun, you can get it from certain foods, and you can take a supplement. But this is the big thing about vitamin D. Your body makes vitamin D when you're exposed to the sun, but you also make vitamin D when you're converting cholesterol in your skin. So if you don't have enough cholesterol in your skin, you're not going to make enough vitamin D. So that's why people that are on statins or low-fat diets or low-cholesterol diets tend to be deficient in vitamin D. And people that are obese actually make more vitamin D because they have more cholesterol in their bodies. There's something else that's fascinating about vitamin D. All right, let's move on to the next vitamin. We have vitamin E. Now, the main function of vitamin E is to help prevent oxidation. So it's another antioxidant like vitamin A and vitamin C. Vitamin E is also anti-inflammatory. It helps prevent clotting and it helps lower blood pressure. Now, the main form of vitamin E that you want is called tocopherols. There's different tocopherols. You have alpha, beta, delta, and then you have different tocopherols, like you have alpha, beta, and delta, and then you have different tocotrienols. And this gets confusing, But the main one that you want is called alpha tocopherol. That's the most bioavailable, and that's the one that's been studied the most. Now, if you're going to get your vitamin E from foods, it's mostly going to come from vegetable oils, which I'm not a big fan of. I mean, you can use them in small amounts, but I wouldn't consume a lot of them because they're highly processed. But they do have a lot of vitamin E. In fact, wheat germ oil has the most vitamin E out of any food. But here's the problem. Wheat germ oil is highly oxidizable. It goes bad really quickly, but the best natural source of vitamin E would be in leafy greens, like spinach, in nuts and seeds, and also in avocados. And here's the thing about vitamin E. It's very difficult to get enough vitamin E from your food. You really have to consume like 12 ounces of spinach every day to get 1 milliliters of vitamin E, and you probably need at least 30 milligrams of vitamin E every day. So chances are you're not getting enough from your food. And what's interesting is that vitamin E can actually reduce the risk of getting lung cancer, and it can reduce the risk of getting prostate cancer. So I definitely recommend taking a vitamin E supplement. And then the last vitamin is vitamin K1. Now, K1 is important for preventing plaque from forming, and it keeps your arteries nice and flexible. Foods that are high in vitamin K1 are leafy green vegetables like kale, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and then you have organ meats, which are also high in K1. And then you also have fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, which are also high in vitamin K1. So if you're getting enough vitamin K1, it's going to keep your arteries flexible and it's going to help reduce plaque. So those are the 5 vitamins that will help dissolve plaque in your arteries. And if you haven't seen my video on the 6 nutrients that will help unclog your arteries, I put that video up right here. Check it out.